Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the community conversation with City Council put on by our Madam President. Madam President put on eight district tour, either a walk around with the chief and herself, or a town hall meeting. We were fortunate that we had both in our district. We had a walk around on August 1st for the night out in the community. The chief was gracious enough to come back and do a town hall meeting for everyone. So without further ado, first I'm going to have Madam President come up and say some remarks. And I'd like to just thank everybody for coming. We'll have Madam President, then we'll have Chief Tracy, and then we'll have a question and answer.
Thank you, Councilman Turner. Good evening, everyone. And I'd like to thank you, all residents of the 5th District, for coming out tonight and joining us for our community conversations with City Council. I believe strongly that city engagement is a critical component to our ongoing efforts to address and resolve the multitude of quality issues that plague our city. It is the same belief that guided me in my efforts to establish this community conversations with City Council initiative, often during civic associations and neighborhood planning councils meetings. Your council representative is here, and then your first line of defense for addressing local issues. And I know that Councilman Turner has been serving you well. But when it comes to solving issues at the local level, we must listen to you and include you in the resolution of that process. As Council President, my goal was to engage Wilmington residents and their neighborhoods to share important city-specific information, but more importantly, to listen to you. And that's what this community conversation, the City Council initiative is all about. As you might imagine, public safety is the #1 concern of residents, businesses, and visitors here to the City of Wilmington. In some instances, it hinders our effort to attract employers and jobs to our area. But to this end, I felt that it was imperative that public safety be the focus of the community conversations with council initiative. I felt that it was equally as important to partner with Wilmington's new police chief, Robert Tracy, and to introduce him to the diverse communities throughout our community. I've had the pleasure of meeting with Chief Tracy and speak with him about our great city and the important work that we have ahead of us. I can tell you that Chief Tracy is qualified, capable, and committed to reducing crime, employing and redeploying our rank and file in a more efficient and effective manner, and strengthening the relationship between the police and the residents of Wilmington. Chief Tracy has a proven track record of using data-driven analysis and good old police ingenuity to address and reduce crime. He's done it in New York and Chicago, and with collective support, we're confident that we will do the same thing here in the city of Wilmington. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out this evening, Councilman Turner for hosting this evening, all of you residents for coming out and holding conversations with us. But most importantly, I want to thank you for sharing your concerns and suggestions that continue to help us to move Wilmington forward. With that, I would like to now introduce to you our new chief, Chief Tracy. He has a 30-year law enforcement veteran from history from New York City. He was recently chief of crime control strategies for the city of Chicago. And while there, Chief Tracy's strategies, policies, and restructuring resulted in a 30% reduction in overall crime during a 4-year period, the lowest overall crime rate in 50 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Chief Robert Tracy.
Thanks, Council President. How are you? I'm going to hold on. Good to see people at the Councilman, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I like to walk around a little bit, so we're mic'd up, so they'll be able to get me on the camera, but it's tough for me to stay behind a podium because I like to actually engage a little bit, and I feel restricted, or restricted when I'm behind here. But thank you very much for having me. And as the Council President has talked about, not only am I doing town hall meetings with each one of the 8 districts and actually council members at large, I've been trying to get to every single community organization within the city. That's one of the promises that I made when I was announced on April 12th, that I will get to every community. But I'm one person, but I'm making every community and trying to make them again and again. But when you start in April and then you hit the summertime, a lot of the civic associations take a break in the summer, then they start to get going again in September when school starts. So I'm able to catch up, but this was fortunate when the council president approached me and said, hey, will you do a walk through the neighborhood to each council person's district? And can you do a town hall? And I said, absolutely, because that actually opens up the audience. It's actually a larger audience because sometimes it takes different civic associations within it. I like to get into specifics of each area, but with this, it actually gets me a chance to hear your questions in a larger audience. And at the same time, I want to make sure that when we're working, we're going to make sure we make every meeting. You're going to get to know who your sector captain is, who your sector lieutenants, who your district police officers are. I'm going to make sure the police officers that are working work the same district every single day that they work. Because I want everybody to have ownership of areas, and you get to know your police officers. You get to know your supervisors. You get to know your captains. The city of Wilmington is broken up into 3 sectors. Sector 1, that's north of the Brandywine, that goes each side of the city, east to west, it goes to the Delaware River, and north to the city. Sector 2 goes down everything east of 95, below the Brandywine. And in Sector 3, which we're in right now, goes everything from 95 below the Brandywine, west out to the city and south. So in Sector 2, which I just answered, more West Center City, right across just east of us on 95, you get Captain McGillen, who's here. He's on the right, the far right. In Sector 3, you got Captain Matt Curtin. Matt is right in the middle with the white shirt. He's your sector captain, actually has the Hilltop here. And with us today, we also have Lieutenant Bowers. Lieutenant Bowers is right here. He works this area. And then we got 2 corporals, Corporal Severance and Corporal McNulty. And I think someone else is in there. Come on in, officer. What's your name, sir? There you go. Come on in, come on in, come on in. My officers, what we need to do, we need to get back to. One of the things when I came in, the first concern that I heard from most of the communities, can you bring back community policing? Can you bring back community policing? I said, well, where did it go? Well, they said, well, we had 12 officers, 1 per district. So let me just explain again. We have 3 districts breaking up the city. 3 sectors. Within each sector, we have 3 districts. So this district right now is district number what, Matt? 18. So you got 17, 18, and 19, correct? And then to the right of us is 16 going east, which is West Center City. That's in Sector 2. But each sector has 1 captain, has 3 districts in it. But what we had is we had 12 to 16 community policing officers. Well, do you want 12 specialists at a department that was 319 police officers? Or do you want 319 police officers that are community policing officers? Because aren't they the ones serving you 24 hours a day? Don't you want them to know the conditions? Don't you want them to be community policing officers? Do I want one police department where they have 12 officers saying, hey, they're the ones that handle all the complaints and the long-term community complaints? I said, no, we can do it all. If we're servicing the community, it's about respect, it's about getting to know the community, and it's about building trust. And how do you get there? Well, if we're not going to the community meetings, and we're not talking to you, or you're not hearing your concerns, then we can't build trust if we're not even having a conversation. And if something happens on the street where we need help, the first time we're talking to you to help cooperate with us, that's the wrong time to be speaking with you. We need to be speaking to you way before that. And we have to keep that conversation going. And that all starts with me. That's why I'm making every community meeting. And I hope to be here 4 years, 8 years. You will see me at community meetings. You will see me with my captains. You'll see me with my lieutenants. You'll see me with the corporals, the sergeants, the police officers. Because that's the way we're supposed to be doing it. Because, if you listen to the council president's introduction, a lot of things that I've done is based on intelligence-led policing. But I also did community policing. With intelligence-led policing, I go after where the crime's happening, where I think the priorities are. We're going to do that. But At a local level, I need to know what your priorities are, and it's different for each community. And if we're not out here speaking with you, hearing those concerns, then I'm going to prioritize them what I think, and that's not the right way to go. Because we will take care of the violent crime, we will concentrate on that. But there's a lot of nuisance and quality of life issues that are happening each and every day that people are very concerned about, and we can't forget about that. But if we hear them, my officers see them, we do directed patrols, we stay consistent with them. Some of them we're not going to solve overnight. Some of them not even policing issues. But it can start with us, and then we can stay on top of it, and we can help coordinate. But we have to stay consistent, we got to hear your concerns. And if I'm not back at these meetings, I will be at them, but I'm not going to make every single one. But when I will make as many as possible, I will have my captains and lieutenants and corporals here to continue this meeting. And then you will have their numbers to call them for non-emergency type of issues. And those are the things that I promise you. And those are the things that are going to happen. I've been here 4 months, a little over 4 months. I already did, I walked through the neighborhood. I walk through this neighborhood quite a bit. I drive around through the neighborhood, and shortly I'll be in uniform. But that didn't stop me from getting out in the community. There's a little thing with Delaware. When I come from New York or Illinois, where I was a sworn police officer, we have a certification process in this state that I need to respect. Because what these officers went through to get themselves into uniform, that's what I'm doing. So in a couple of weeks, you'll see me in uniform, and I can't wait to get into uniform and to be even more active in the community than I was just with the suit. So those are some of the things I just wanted to lead off and talk about. But I also want to just give a little history about myself. I became a police officer in 1984. I made sergeant in 1988 in the NYPD. One of my first precincts that I went to in New York. And then if people know it, going up 95, you go over to George Washington Bridge, the tip of Manhattan, then you're into the Bronx, that little sliver up there in the top of Manhattan, that's called Washington Heights. That was one of the first places that I went as a supervisor. I worked the Bronx as a police officer. When I went there, that community was about 200,000 people. It was about a 3-mile radius, and it had about 120 murders a year and about 500 shootings. And when I got to that precinct, and I stayed there for 7 or 8 years, I see guys here. When I got there, 7 or 8 years I was in that precinct. And what I was told when I first got there, don't worry, there's nothing we're going to be able to do to change this. This is just the way things are. I didn't believe that. I know working with the community, and I know working in effective, intelligence-led policing, working on issues, working with elected officials, working with clergy, working with city government, working with businesses, and working with civic associations, and working with people that are invested in the community and really vested into the place where we are, we can make a difference, but we got to all work together. That community went from 120 murders almost 20 years ago when I was there, down to 1 last year. 1. So when people say it can't be done, I've been there and been part of things that we've had some solutions. New York City, I was fortunate enough, where in the early 90s, I had 10 years of reactive policing. And in 1994, the NYPD hired a police commissioner from Boston. Now, New York City, you know how big the NYPD is? How many officers? 40,000 police officers, 20,000 civilians, over 60,000 employees. A city of about 8 million people. So a man from Boston who came from a 2,000-man police department in a very small city, what can he tell us, and what can he show the biggest police department in the United States? Well, then Bill Bratton came in. And when Bill Bratton came in, he changed the way we did policing, that a lot of other police departments that are successful today have followed that methodology and have had long-term success when they stayed the course. Bill Bratton came in 1994. The murders in New York City were 2,245 murders a year. Through that methodology of CompStat, business management principles applied to police work, community policing, engagement, working with all the other entities I just talked about, help reduce New York City. It stayed the course. Is down to 330 murders last year in a city of 8 million people. 2,245 murders to 330. Shootings down 95%. Robberies, burglaries, assaults, auto thefts. If you stay the course in the system that I'm applying to Wilmington, we have to show patience, but it does work in the long run. And it's the work that the officers are going to do. It's the work that the officers are doing already. And it's the accountability process that starts with organizational discipline, organizational accountability, organizational communication, and then it's built in with community where we teach the officers, and a lot of officers know this, but retrain or make sure that we reinvest in procedural justice and police legitimacy. Now that covers implicit bias, that covers a lot of things. And in it, it's about respect. Respect with the community. Because if we respect the community, respect's going to come back. It's about listening. It's about being neutral. Because a lot of issues that we come across in the city, we're the most forward arm of government as police. So everybody's issue, they call the police. Because all the other mental health facilities are cutting down, health facilities, education's having their issues. So what happens? The police are called to a lot of issues, good and bad. And when people are frustrated, they're taking their frustrations out, not so much at the police, but in government as a whole. I really believe that. I know that. And so we as police officers have to understand it's not personal. But you know what? We will help. And that's what I expect out of my police officers. I expect respect, listening, neutrality, learning what's going on, helping. And there's other things in evidence-based policing that are going to be putting forward that you'll hear announcements coming out. Now that we're getting the foundation in the Wilmington Police Department of a new methodology, that it's a new playbook. These guys are all very good, trained police officers, but I'm bringing a new system in. And just like if anybody's a sports fan, you bring a new offensive coordinator in, a defensive coordinator, although they've been good enough to make the NFL and they're good athletes, when you give them a new playbook, it takes a little time to all get on the same page to work it. And that's what we're doing here. And that's what we're doing with ComStat. That's what we do with our weekly meetings. That's what we do. We do 3 executive management meetings a week. That's what we do as a response to how we handle shootings, how we answer homicides, how we answer to all these other crimes, and right down to the things I know I'm going to hear about today and we're going to talk about. And I'm not going to take the floor all day. I'm going to open it up to questions and answers. And I'm also going to be guided by how Councilman Turner wants to have this thing go. And I will open up the questions, but that's the way we've been doing in the past, but I'm open to any way this forum is going to be done. So those are some of the things I just want really at a high level, a very, very high level of what we're going to do. So let's fast forward. I leave the NYPD after 24 years as a commander. I go into the private sector, so I have some private sector experience where I know what it's like to make payroll. I ran a $90 million security company. And then after that, I went on in 2011 to become the Chief of Crime Control Strategies in the city of Chicago. I'm not responsible for 2016, 2017 numbers that you've seen that's happened in Chicago. But I will tell you where we got from 2011 to 2013 following these strategies that were put in place, working with the community, all the things that I stated. We reduced murders and shootings in the city of Chicago to the lowest in 50 years in 2013. And in 2014, reduced them even more. We reduced overall crime. When I say we, I say the community working together with the police officers, not me. We came up with a plan and we executed it. 40% reduction in overall crime. And one of the things that we needed to do better, which I learned, is the community engagement. So that's why I'm so big on making sure that I'm getting out as much as possible with my officers, because that didn't catch up in Chicago. So you learn, you live and learn from your experiences, but you make sure that what you can do better, you bring to the next place. And that's what I'm trying to do. But the difference between Chicago, and I think the difference between LA and New York, LA and New York stayed the course of what we're bringing in and what we're doing here in Wilmington now. But it takes a long time. You want to have sustained success to get where they are, but as long as you go in the right direction. And what Chicago did is they flipped over the table, they abandoned all those strategies, and murders and shootings doubled last year and this year. They're up about 760 murders and 4,400 people shot, which was double the time that we were there running the strategies we had in place. So these are the types of things I know work. I know that we can do together. And we got to build Wilmington for some long-term success. And how we do that is making sure that we get a good foundation of what we're doing. Leaving Chicago, now I'm here. Been here since April 14th, April 12th, that was announced. And a lot of things that I'm talking about now is making sure that we have that community engagement and making sure that we get these things in place with these business management principles that apply to police work and evidence-based strategies where it's not arresting everyone, but it's making sure that we give alternatives to people that might be in violent crime to get them help. And the ones that don't need that, then actually they've made their choice. And when we've done these things both in New York and in Chicago, I'll just go back to Chicago. We arrested almost 15,000 less people a year getting the results that we were doing. So this is not about arresting everyone. This is about making sure that we stay strategic and not pulling everybody into the loop, because that's the last thing I want to happen. I do not want everybody arrested. I actually want people to be very responsible young people in the community and try to keep them out of crime, try to keep them responsible, try to get them the help they need, try to get that education. And those are the things that you can see what the philosophies that we're doing, we're going to be bringing in here, and we've already started. We'll be bringing focused deterrents, custom notifications, a lot of things you'll be hearing in the news as we layer this approach in the next month, so as we go out through the year. And then we're going to continue to add some of these things. You don't want to do everything all at once, because if you do too many things, you're going to fail at everything. So I want to build a foundation and incrementally build a very good strategy that's going to build us for the long run for this city. So with that, this was probably one of my shortest, because this is about my 7th town hall. And I know people want to ask questions, and I know Councilman Turner wants to address his concerns, and then we're going to open it up to questions. So Councilman, I'll follow your lead. And then I see Councilman Adams. How are you?
Well, Councilman Adams. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the young people for coming, because you guys are the future. And not only are you the future, you're the future of our neighborhoods. So, you know, we need to hear from you guys as well with the community. You know, so I'm gonna open up the questions. I'm not gonna put any young folk on blast right now on notice, but I do want you guys to put your input in, because it's important for us to know what we need to do to serve you guys better than what we are. So don't look at any question as being a dumb question or anything like that. We need you guys' input. You know, you are the future. We need to shape it up with you guys' guidance and input. So I'll open it up the floor for questions for Chief Tracy. Anyone that has any questions?
And before, I'll take your question first. And what we've done at every meeting, in every civic association meeting, or any block party, or any other meeting, my officers and I will be here to the end. So if you don't want to ask a question in public, or it's something you want to talk to us alone, we will be here to the end. We're going to turn out the lights right with the cleaners and make sure that we're here to take every question, because that's how important it is. So some people don't want to speak in public, and I can understand that and I respect that. Some people just might even be shy. So we'll be here to the end. So I'll take as many questions as possible, and then when we cut it, we'll stay afterwards. Anybody else that might have a question?
Chief, we got one right over there.
Yeah, I see. Go ahead, man.
Hi, my name's Heather Hook. I live on Kent Street. Oh, sorry, I stand up. And I want to circle back to your question about communication, when you said everyone's going to be communicating more. Back right before Mayor Williams came on board, we used to get a listing of every single incident that happened within our neighborhood by block number, address, and the level of the incident sent to us, and the number of incidents that happened on a monthly basis from our city council people. So Councilman Frill and Councilman Prado would send it to us every single month, and we'd know exactly how many incidents we had against others. Then when Mayor Williams came on board, he and 2016, then Cummings, they started using something where I wanted to use Nixle. And then also on the WP, the Facebook wall that you guys have for it. Slowly that seems to have just kind of all dissipated. You never know what you're gonna get, and
Right.
now it's more, people are calling me, everybody's frantic, because last night there was a helicopter circling our houses at 6 o'clock at night, and we know something bad happened, but no one knows what. What can you do right now to try to reinstitute some of this so that we can communicate with each other and we can try to help as a community when something happens?
Well,
Thanks.
Thank you, great question. As far as getting some of these crime statistics, I'm not sure how it was done in the past, and I can only answer how I want to move forward. So Nixle alerts is something that we do put out, especially if something happens. What I have is now trying to get better communication. I want to use that Facebook a heck of a lot better than we're using now, Nixle alert. I'm making some changes in our communications from a public information officer to a communications officer to make sure that we can get those things out. We also, having Captain Curtin and Captain McGillen here, when I talked about having 12 community policing officers, well, I want to make sure that we have, each captain has about 36 officers or 40 police officers. And having their information to be able to make those phone calls, or someone getting to know them. When I said it's a non-emergency, you're not sure exactly what's happening, you can make those phone calls. And we got to get better at pushing that information, exactly what's going on. We have an investigation. I know when there's an accident, there's a closure, that we've been putting that out immediately on Nixle just to make sure that the traffic's going to be diverted. I'm not sure why that didn't get put out, what was going on. But we got to take a look at that. I'm open to suggestions the best way. I know next door is something that everybody's starting to use as far as the neighborhoods using that. I know there's other types of blogs that everyone's on, but that's not for emergencies. And a lot of people confuse that when you go on the blog, that we should be monitoring that. There's just way too many of them. If it's emergency, call 911, non-emergency, get things out. And I'm finding the best way to get this information out because the immediacy of people wanting the information in this day and age and the expectations. So I'm looking for best ways to get it out, but it starts here. I'm not sure if you know Captain Curtin. Not sure if you know Captain McGillen.
I've met Captain Curtin before, and we have 583 Facebook members just in this neighborhood,
Right.
on the west side of Cool Spring. And I know you're not a Facebooker. You said you're never going to be, but if somebody could even be on it for that type of thing. It's just
Right.
the communication we're having. I mean, I know everyone's having work. I just got to find one way.
I've actually, I'm in 4 months, I'm reviewing everything, and I am the biggest thing, when I interviewed for this job, on top of crime reduction, one of my top 5 things that I talked to the mayor and his search committee was communication, and communication to the public.
Right.
And I even talked about bringing in, if I could budget for a civilian communication strategist, just so we can get that information out a heck of a lot better than someone that's been in it, or be able to make sure we have the right person trained within the department. I'm still looking at that, but it's something that's very important, and I really do believe that vacuum of getting that information means a lot to everyone. Hey, we just had an incident over here. No one's on the loose. We're not, but if there's not a danger to the public. That's what you're worried about right now. So we had an incident, and then what goes out? How we tailor it, immediacy sometimes, if we get it out very quick, sometimes you got to be aware that we can't give all the information out.
Oh, sure.
Okay? So there's a balance if we try to do it fast, what we can put out, but somehow to put you at ease, we got to find that balance. And I'm looking at that. And I promise you, there's going to be some changes in how we do that. Okay? And I'll be back to talk about that. I'm not going to let that go. You got me on record here. There's 4 different cameras, so I'm here. So, next question. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Deshaun. I work here at Hilltop Lutheran Community Center. A lot of what you talked about today was in regards to community engagement. And I guess my question is there any collaborative strategies that you'll be employing that you can share with us today in regards to how you're going to work with organizations like Hilltop, city council people, and specifically engaging our youth? So, do you have a strategy that maybe that you use in other places that you can share with us today in a way that we can have that relationship and those conversations in a more, meeting us where we are when. I feel like in many ways the police have not met us where we are. For instance, just being in specific places and having those conversations with kids in places like this. So are there strategies that you have that you want to employ that would include that type of collaborative thing that's going on within the community?
Thank you. Well, first it starts here. You said that it's kind of been missing, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So it has to start with my officers being here, the same ones, every time they're working in the same neighborhoods. So I just can't put a program together and say, hey, let this work. Let's get the foundation of making sure I have the same officers working the same shift in the same area, which probably wasn't happening. Because if they're moving to different areas, then you know what? They're not going to know the conditions that we're talking about. So I want to start there. I want to get some discipline in what we're doing, and I want to start breaking down the barriers starting here. As far as engagement with the schools, we have Book 'em Club. We're in there reading books. We're doing things with a lot of schools. There's a lot of things that we probably haven't marketed ourselves very well on what we're doing. And those are some of the opportunities that we're missing. We do work with the city council. We do work with city government, with the parks and recreation. I mean, there's a lot of things that were going on this summer that we were a big part of, but we shared the information of where we can send children. But we got to do a better job even as a city communicating where those areas are. And then in the engagement is the officers. I mean, we got the PAL Center, call it PAL here, right? Or a PAL? PAL. PAL in 2 other places. So we have to do a better job of doing that, getting that out, getting that communication out. And that's where it starts. That's what I'm seeing. And I think we're doing a lot of things. It's just not out there. But there are a lot of things that we are doing behind the scenes. But it's got to start with this foundation of building this relationship, starting here with my officers, being at every one of these meetings. And then we can work together. What are some of your ideas? What would you like to see? I mean, I'm open. I'm open to a lot of ideas. I don't just want to push a strategy on you. And this is not me trying to walk away from this. There's so many other things that we start in other places. PAL, youth, softball leagues, baseball leagues, soccer. I mean, we've done a lot of those things in different places. I don't know what the infrastructure is that we have, but I'd like to start with everybody getting to know everybody in this community so you get to know them. And then let's share some ideas. And I know we're doing a lot of things already in Wilmington, but we don't market ourselves that well, especially the police department. And that goes right back to the communications issue with the first question. But I'm open to listening to some of your ideas as well, what we can do better.
As a way to kind of rekindle the relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm kind of arguing at. Not specifically a strategy. Is that in the mindset?
Right.
Is that in the mindset of the people to, or in regards to what you guys are trying to do? It's like something that I'm thinking.
Well, take a look at when we had the night out. We were down in Helen Chambers Park. What a great day when we were in West Center City. We got to do more of that. And, you know, we even had the mayor playing football and running a sweep. He got tackled, I don't know, he went down. But we were engaged with the children, we were engaged with the community, and everybody said we need to do more of that. And we had the SWAT truck, we had the drone, we had the fire department. You know, there's some of the things that we've been missing, and everybody felt so good about that. And those are some of the things we got to build on. Because you know what that really did? It just opened up the conversation, and it broke down some of the barriers that I think that we have with the community and the police. So we will get there, and I'm open to ideas, and I also want my captains to be more involved because they are the quarterbacks of each one of these sectors, and their input, and they're open to the strategies to help us build this community engagement. Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hold on, I'll be there. Hold on, let me bring the mic over. But stand
I
on
don't think I'm gonna need a mic.
but for the camera.
Good evening, everyone. Chief.
How are you doing?
All right. I hear community policing, which is great. I like the way you think. I like the way direction you're going with. But the thing is that we have to realize as a community that we can't depend on the police to do everything for us. We have to police ourselves. Why do we have to wait for the government to come and create an event for us to share some time together. We can do this ourselves. We're all in the 5th district. We're all neighbors. I don't know you, I don't know you, I don't know you, I know you, I know you, but I don't know most of you guys. You understand what I'm saying? We need to get involved with each other and not depend on the men in blue. Because guess what? They go home. We stay here. You understand what I'm saying? So that's we need to understand that the way to help them, we have to help ourselves first. Is what I understand. And I live on 5th and Family One. And I've seen a lot, and I've been through a lot, I've been part of a lot. You know, I mean, I've hung out with the worst and the best. You know, I've been through the whole spectrum. And it bothers me. Because I don't know anyone in my neighborhood anymore. And the 5th district is the most populated and the most diverse area in the whole state of Delaware. Now, if the 5th district does well, I can guarantee you the city of Wilmington will do well as well. Because you have 2 main arteries here. You have 95 and 4th Street. 5th district is the only place we have a supermarket. Other districts have a supermarket. You understand? We have everything here. Now we need to start taking care of it. And taking care of each other, taking care of our neighbors. That way they can take care of them, and they can take care of us. We're here to protect and to serve, not to babysit. You understand what I'm saying? This goes for young boys. You ever go to 5th Street corner store, you see me here, come talk to me. I'll talk to you whatever you want to talk about. Doesn't matter. School, girls, mom, pop, don't matter. I'm open. But that's what we need to do. We need to be here for each other. You know what I mean? That's it. You guys have a good night.
Thanks, Javier.
Anybody else have questions, statements?
And Javier, to follow up on that, you know, I don't live in this district. I just bought a house 2 months ago. My family, I just closed on my house on the south side of Chicago. So I moved my wife and 5 kids. They just moved this weekend. So 3 of my children just started school in the city of Wilmington. And I live by Concord and Baynard Boulevard. So, you know, it's very diverse up there. I'm part of the community. I want to see the community do well, but I also engage with 2 hats. I'm in the community, I'm also the chief. So I want to see the city succeed, I want to see my neighborhood succeed, and I want to be as involved as possible, and I know that's what my wife's going to do. So following up on that, she's big into civic engagement, community engagement, not as in from government, but as a person that lives in the community. And so it's about living here, it's about being involved, and he's absolutely right. And I do, and Councilman Turner, you know, this is the most I've seen young people at any one of my town hall meetings right now, and that's great. So I'm proud of you guys for being here, because it starts with you guys. So I thank you that you take the time, because my 15-year-old boys, I just asked them, hey, you want to go with Dad to a town hall meeting? And they're like, oh, no, you know. So they were at one with me about 3 weeks ago, and they said, no, Dad, you talk too much. So the thing is, we hear you all the time, so we got to go publicly and hear you. So for you guys to be sitting here and listening, I think that's great. And if you have questions, I encourage you to ask them. If you don't want to ask here out with a microphone, I am going to be here with our captains, lieutenants, and corporals. You can ask us a question at any time. Follow up what Xavier said. We are human beings. We do have kids. We do live in a community, and we do have teenagers. And our teenagers have issues and they have questions. So I'm here if you want to ask those questions.
Anybody else have any questions? No other questions? Councilman Street?
I just want to recognize the President, Senator Marshall.
Oh, yeah.
I want my kids to know everybody. Okay, so that's Senator Marshall, that's Councilman
Hey, Senator.
Adam, that's Councilwoman President Shabazz, and that's Councilman Turner. And back in the day when I had black hair, Councilman Turner used to ball in here, and he was all that. Am I right?
questions? No question for the young, nobody in the young?
Did everybody hear me when I said Councilman Adams? He didn't hear me, so I want to make sure I got that in.
Yeah, you said council. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Adams, Council President Shabazz, Councilman Turner, State Representative, how are you, sir? Say Senator, I'm sorry. Senator, you gotta remember. And then we got the county representative as well.
Tonight I'm director of Hilltop. I'm gonna stay in my lane.
You cover this area?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Tracy. I live in the neighborhood in Cold Spring. And I had one of the things you mentioned caught my attention. I don't know how many more details you could give us about what's planned for Wilmington, but you mentioned alternatives to arrest as something that you worked on in other places. And I've heard of some different types of programming, but I wonder if you could tell a little bit more about what that might look like, what those opportunities would be.
Right. Well, you know, some of the things that we've done in the past, what I was most proud of in Chicago was that I talked about 2013, 2014, where we lowered the murders and shootings to the lowest since 1965, 66, thinking about that, and even per capita. But what we said, how do we get where they're starting to have juvenile violence and they were getting and offenders? How do we start working on that? And we worked with the Chicago Public Schools, and we call them juvenile custody notifications, where we see children or teenagers that have a higher propensity for violence that are going down a bad road. And how do we get to them with social services, with the schools, with the police? And the police aren't going there to arrest, but to warn them that they have a higher propensity of violence, and they're almost 500 times more likely to be a victim of violence if they continue down this road. And what can we do to help? And we did that, and that actually drove down the violent crime for juveniles almost 35% my last year we left at the end of 2015. So there's ways to start doing this. But that took me a few years to get into, and I want to do things a heck of a lot quicker here. But Chicago was a little bigger, but we started out doing it with adults, doing the same thing. And it's called strategic subject lists of people that have higher propensity for violence, meaning there's people that are 500 to 1,000 times more likely to be a victim or an offender in a shooting in the city of Wilmington. But those individuals that you identified are 1% of 1% of this population. So think about it. It's a very, very small percentage that are committing 60 to 70% of the violent crime. So if you can work on them, try to give them opportunities, not choices, opportunities. There's no choices here. So if you want to continue to do that, yes, we'll put you away for a long time. But if you want to go down this way, then you know what, we're going to get you to help. And that's really worked and helped reducing it, and that helped with reducing the arrests. And you work on that, but you can work on it from both ends. I mean, you have the council president that really has been pushing CDC as far as a Council on Disease Control. They're looking at children that have trauma in their life and diagnosing it more as disease, which I agree with, because I've seen it working with adults and what causes. And when you have that type of violence, that trauma when you're a child, it's going to affect your ability to learn sometimes in those environments. How do we get to them early? And the council president we're diagnostic, but now we're coming up with strategies with very smart people in a room to how we can work with schools, how we can work with social services, and how the police can engage. Because who gets in these households more than anyone else? The police. We're called for domestics, we're called for any other reason, a lot of different reasons. And if we see something that's not outright abuse, but we see potential there, because we'll take action if we do, we'll make the calls and take a person out of the room. But we also give help, and it's called, what do we call it? CDCP, Child Development Through Community Policing. So we have grants that we have people that work with us in the Wilmington Police Department that we will call and say, there's something that's not right here, can you come over here and at least call them to see if they need help? So we're getting in, we're trying to go from, when you get into the schools, then you can actually see them in schools, but before the schools, how do we get to the children that really need that help, where we can identify them? And we're trying to find ways of doing that. And then I'm trying to hit it from the top trying to give alternatives where it's really called focused deterrence. And we try to get the help on the back end. But if you don't heed it and you want to go back into the community, you want to cause violence, you want to do shootings, you know what? I'm sorry, we tried to help, we tried to give you opportunities, but we can't have you doing this to our communities. And we have the moral voice of the community, people telling them about it, saying you got to stop doing this, and then we got the social service end. So these are the areas we want to get in, but 4 months, been here 4 months, trying to get and make sure our officers are learning this new playbook. I'm built on already good policing and good quality officers and leaders. I want to make sure that we start to incrementally put these things in place, and I'm going to start doing these things, but I want to get to juveniles, and I'm working with the city council, and specifically the council president, and I'm on some panels with her, and actually I've been pulled into some of those boards as well, right? So, and I'm happy to be on it, because if we can stop things from happening here, then I'm not going to be dealing with it down the road, because that's the last thing I want to do, is to put anybody in jail, because that cycle continues. And one of the things that we looked at in Chicago, and I want to take a good look at in the state of Delaware and the city of Wilmington, is that our risk model looked at recidivism. So we looked at 2- and 3-time offenders, and we said, okay, now we really got to work with them. No, we flipped the model. And we said, let's make sure if the first-time offender, let's not let them get into the system. Because once you're in the system, the chances of going back in and reoffending go up exponentially. And what we want to do is try to divert. And I haven't gotten to that because I'm still trying to make sure my area and what we're doing as a police department to be as efficient as possible. But then I'm starting to work with some of my other partners in the criminal justice system and with our elected officials, clergy, business leaders, and the community. But those things are some of the things that I'm looking at. I will be announcing those. I will make sure that I get out and get that communicate. You're absolutely right. And it frustrates me as far as the communication. We are going to get better at that, because when the community knows what we're doing, they're going to come along and they're going to make sure if crime is going down and you don't know why and we're not talking to you, you're not going to believe it, because you don't know exactly how we're doing it. Are we playing with the numbers? It's got to be real. You got to touch it. You got to be able to speak with us. We got to be able to communicate. So those are some of the things that I'm looking at. And then there's other layers. I'm not going to get into that. That's probably going to be after year 1, and then we're going to add some more of these things on. But the good basics starts here with communication, and it's something that's going to be part of our DNA.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Hold on. Y'all ready to come with the mic?
Hello, my name is Rocco Steen.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. You talk about how the police interact with people around the city of Wilmington, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and sometimes when people call, the person who really calls is like getting offended too, as like a situation. If I call a cop, and I'm asking for help with a situation,
Right.
they, sometimes you have nasty cops, and like they, I just want to be able to talk to a cop without him getting aggressive with me.
Right.
So my whole thing is now that we're going to be, interacting with the cops and, all that other stuff. I want it to be in an aggressive way, to look at them like I'm a bad person, or that I'm a person that's a part of a crime, or if somebody has a background and they're trying to change their life around, they don't feel it. I don't feel as though that there should be a threat to them if they're trying to change their life.
Absolutely.
So I just want to
At what time, if you do make a mistake in your life, how long are you going to pay for that, right? For the rest of your life? No, that shouldn't be that way. And then when you want to do the rest of your life? No. There'll be a time that the penance is served. So one of the things is, yes, and that's what I always preach. I always start my roll calls. You can ask the guys, respect with the community. Respect with the community. And even the people who are calling sometimes might be upset, but it's not personal. They're upset at the situation. It's not personal. So what we're also going to do, we're going to continue. We've had it before, but I talked about police legitimacy and procedural justice. This is training that was created by a woman named Tracy Mears out of Yale. Now, Tracy Mears is the foremost expert on racial relations and police relations with communities, and she also works with another doctor, Tom Tyler. So these two have created curriculum that's been actually replicated throughout the United States, and this type of training actually has implicit bias, because sometimes in the unconscious, people are doing things, but once they recognize them, they won't do that. They're not doing it maliciously, but there's some things, and this is all races, have implicit bias. And what we'd like to do is that I'm reinstituting that and making sure that there's training level 1, level 2, level 3 now. And what I want to do is, that's open and the community gets to see that, and it makes us better officers, because when the community respects the police because we're respecting them, you're going to comply. And that's studies that, I'm not going to go into white papers, but we show that when there's respect on both sides, that it's actually safer for the officers because the community will comply a lot with an order. And it's not so much how they do things, it's how people will be treated. And that's exactly where you're going. And that's exactly what I preach, that I want to see. And if I don't see that, I will take action against police officers. Be it you don't belong being a police officer, or there's retraining on certain issues and how to treat people with respect. And I'll look at every situation. And the one way that I would love you to do, if you've been treated in a way that you feel wasn't respectful, the officer wasn't acting the right way, we have mechanisms in place to make a complaint against our officers. So, and we will take a look at that, and you'll be interviewed. So there are processes in place, but there are things that I actually, as the leader of the department, I unbelievably believe in respect to the community. The one thing, when I came out as a police officer in 1984, my father was a Bronx homicide detective for 34 years. And what he said to me when I was just graduated the academy, I said, "Dad, what is the best thing I can do as a police officer? What can I do? How can I be the best police officer I can be?" And you know what he said to me? He goes, "Son, treat every person that you come in contact with as it would be your brother or sister or a family member if they came in contact with a police officer, and how you would want them to be treated." And sometimes there's confrontation out there. And once it's over, it's over. It's over. We're not to continue on that. Those are the things, and that has served me well. And that was procedural justice and police legitimacy before it had a name. That was, now that's what it's called. And that has served me well in my career. And I've worked in very diverse communities my whole life. And I often tell council members, that community I talked about that had 120 murders, I still go down at least once a year, or down, Upper Manhattan. I go out to lunch with them, and we actually sit around and laugh at this place it's called Coogan's Restaurant, right on 68th Street and Broadway, at Columbia Presbyterian. And we meet and we talk about how things were and how we work together and how things have gotten better. And it got by even with respect. Respect is huge. And that even goes back to Sir Robert Peel's principles over 200 years ago in London. If you look up that, think of that name, Sir Robert Peel, because he'll talk about that respect even 200 years ago in policing. And it holds true today. So those are the things. I believe in it, and you're absolutely right. And if you're calling for an issue, how the heck did now the abuse comes to you when you're looking for help? No, that's not something that we should be doing. And I find out that those things are happening that way, that's not going to be good for our officers. Okay, but thank you, great question.
Director Street.
No, I'm good. I ain't gonna get accountable for a New York man. One, I love music to my ears. You saying community policing and continuity, because what, in my opinion, we've been missing continuity of officers, continuity of times. And as a co-chair of public safety for county council, it's been a challenge because it's somewhat contractually prohibitive, which I have some issues with, but that's music to my ears. Second, I asked them, of course, we took their gym tonight, but I asked them to come here tonight for good cause, because I believe every board, commission, meetings I go to, the folks sitting around the table as old as me. But the folks who are suffering, scared to go to school, scared and have some ideas and can tell you how things really are on the street, they're their age. That's the future. And I believe, and I'm saying this to every elected official in the room, until such time as we find a way and develop a mechanism by which to seriously involve them, we're not going to be doing the best job that we can do. So I want them to get started tonight, and I hope it's going to continue. And I just encourage everybody else who has a concern to do the same kind of thing, because if you want the key to it, the answer's sitting right here, and with young people similarly situated all the way across the city.
Thanks.
Anybody else have a question? Like the chief said, the chief would be here afterwards in case somebody wanted to ask him a question, not on the mic. I would like to just address you young fellas, young people. We had a song back in the day when I was growing up, and you might not know this song, but it used to be by Public Enemy called "Don't Believe the Hype." And what I got from that song now as I got older, because when I heard it before, I just thought it was just beats and mute rhymes, but we got labeled something about a couple years back, and I'm not even going to name that label, because you young fellas got to stop. Don't believe the hype. Whatever the news journal want to label you guys, don't believe it. You can achieve whatever you want to achieve. And last week we came together as grassroots opportunities and put together a program, Peace on the Streets. Hopefully some of you guys were there at Peace on the Streets. City Council was one of the main sponsors for Peace on the Streets. We had 3,800 young people there. And you know what hurts me? That our local media was not there. They were not there. But if something broke out, they'd have been the first ones there. So I'm telling you guys, stop sharing the news journal when they say something bad about us. Stop, don't believe the hype. Stop sharing the fights on the media, pulling your phone out. Don't believe the hype. The reason I got to where I am right now is because I had a group of friends that held me accountable for what I did. You guys need to be holding each other accountable and push each other forward. Don't be holding nobody accountable, put the phone up there, trying to glorify somebody fighting. Don't do it. Don't believe the hype. It's going to take all you guys to encourage the one next to you to give us help. Because we need you guys. But you should be pushing one another grades. We push each other in grades. We push each other in sports. You know, yeah, we diddy bopped and all that. We did all that. But it ain't about that all the time. Y'all gotta be accountable. Y'all gotta hold each other accountable. Stop looking at us to come and give you something. Like Javier said, we need you guys to hold each other accountable, and then we'll push this city back forward, man. And the new slogan that we got for the city, because we ain't mentioning that other thing, is Hopetown USA. That's what we call in our city, Hopetown USA. We on Instagram, at Hopetown USA. So you know what I want y'all to do? I want you to add it on Instagram. I want y'all to give us pictures of things y'all do that are great things in our city. And we're gonna add it to our page, because we are now Hopetown USA. That other label is D. You understand that? Let me hear y'all say Hopetown USA. Come on, man, y'all need to say it loud, man. They gave us a label, man. Say it loud.
Hopetown USA.
There you go, man. Be proud of that, man. We're gonna bring this thing around. That's the reason I ran, to be the voice of you guys. I ain't need to be city council. I cared about the youth, and I cared about my district, and I cared about my city. So it's about you guys, man. I ain't no politician. I represent y'all. All right? What is it? Hopetown USA?
Hopetown USA.
And I want to reiterate what Councilman Street was talking about, the importance of communicating and having the young people at the table. A lot of the work that Chief Tracy was talking about that we did in bringing the Center for Disease Control into the city to investigate the epidemic of violence. You know, I said I knew that action was not a natural phenomenon, that it had to be something that was causing our children to be other than themselves, to be able to commit heinous crimes, it's just not a natural human nature activity. Because to take a gun and to shoot someone and take someone's life, that takes a lot. Someone has to be really, really angry and really in a disdained mindset. And a lot of people say when we talk about the young people that there's not a lot of things for young people to do. But there are. We just have to do the proper way to communicate those things to you in a language that is appealing to you and use your mediums. So you'll start seeing soon we did see and understand the value of having our young people at the table to implement the recommendations that we have been able to devise from the investigation for the Center for Disease Control. And in implementing those recommendations, we know that we need to hear from you of how to do so. So soon you will hear, we're going to come up, we know social media is the way to do it. So we created a hashtag, and we're working on the hashtag so that getting young people to put this hashtag and follow it, and you will get messages let you know where there are some positive events going on. It might be, we might send you a hashtag and have a flash mob. There's going to be something going on that Councilman Turner's put together over in Helen Chambers Park, or that there might be something here at Hilltop. But we are going to use your medium, but we need your voice. I would like to invite anybody who is interested in working with us to implement the recommendations for the CDC every second Tuesday at 3 p.m. at the Achievement Center on Vanover Avenue from 3 to 5. The Community Advisory Council is meeting. This is a group of about 38 different stakeholders who has been working for the past 2 years, volunteering their time to break the epidemic root cause of what has caused our children to be in the toxic environment that they are. We understand that it's us as adults have created this environment that has not been conducive for you to grow up to be prosperous and positive contributors. And so we're doing a lot about it. This is not just, we know that you have experienced what they call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences that has caused trauma. And those traumas episodes cause you to respond in a certain type of way. We call it having a traumatic episode. We found it important for individuals like the police department who have agreed to go and participate in trauma-informed training so that when you are in a traumatic state, because you have experienced whatever your experience might be, and you're reacting the way that you're reacting, and they don't take it as you're being aggressive, they don't take it that you're being angry or disrespectful, but they're able to identify that you are in a traumatic episode and to handle you accordingly, and not in a punitive way, but a more nurturing way. And so there is a lot of work that's being done to make things better for you. As the chief said, give us time, we're working diligently to do this, but now we need your input to make sure that the way that we do it is something that you can hear it about the change, and that we're doing the change that is a way that is what you feel is what needed. So look for this hashtag. I want to give you a little heads up. We haven't confirmed it, but I'm going to tell you the hashtag is power, because we have the power to make the change. It's positive organizations working with energetically to reform our communities. So look for the word, look for our hashtag power. Thank you.
Council is something to think about, and maybe Mr. Streeto as well. In the 5th district, there's how many community centers? You have West Center City, Hilltop, LACC, and West End is right on the house, right on the border. So you can say 4. So there shouldn't be any kids out here having nothing to do. I'm just saying, put a little bit more pressure on these community centers so they can work together and get this 5th district going.
Currently looking for dollars. We had extended weekends. We had the extended hour initiative for the 13 community centers across the country, across the city, that the community centers stay open later and all weekends. That was funded by the state for us to have that up until, I think, the middle of September. And we've just had another entity come forward to us, possibly finding dollars to extend it. Because a safe haven is safe and open, 365, 7 days a week? Because you never know when a child doesn't need a safe place to go. So we're working diligently to make that a possibility also. If you're in distress, there's a safe place for you to go, and persons inside those community centers also trained with the informed care training to recognize that you're in a traumatic episode and not that you're misbehaving, to be able, and then also equipped with resources of where to direct you to get the support that you and your family might need. So there are efforts being addressed to assist them.
Thank everybody for coming out. Thank Chief Tracy. He didn't have to do this for him to come and on his busy schedule to embrace us and share what his vision is for the city. Thank you, Madam President, for coming out as well. I mean, I know she's very busy. And thank everybody that came. You know, I thank you guys, but we can't do it without you guys. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
My thoughts is I like the way the chief is coming out to the community and reaching out to the community, giving the community a chance to express their concerns and questions, also their ideas. What I got out of this meeting is that everyone was on point and pretty much had the same what do you say? How do you say it? Oh, my Spanish getting in the way. Same concern, which was more the youth and more interacting with the police.
I thought it was great. I thought the community definitely asked the proper questions. Their concerns, I think he answered them. I think that, it showed our diversity, from what we have in the 5th District. You have Hispanics, you have Caucasian, you have Black, and you also have young people and elders. So we had all that demographics was captured tonight. And they definitely asked the questions, and I think that we're going to see a change, not only just in the 5th District, but also in the city.